They always told me to smile. At home, at school, at work. No matter what life hurled at me, I was expected to plaster on that perfect, polite expression. "You're the sunshine in the office, Clara," they'd say as they piled extra work onto my desk without so much as a thank you. I was the intern who always said yes, the assistant who remembered birthdays and brought in cupcakes, the junior analyst who triple-checked everyone's data reports. And still, they didn't see me. Or maybe they just chose not to. Especially Ethan Blake, my supervisor. Slick-haired, fast-talking Ethan, who made it his mission to remind me of my place. "You're sharp for a girl with no Ivy League background," he smirked one afternoon, handing me a stack of folders minutes before I was set to leave for my brother's wedding. "This needs to be done by Monday." Shouldn't be a problem for someone with such low social commitments. I bit down hard on my tongue and nodded. That was the moment the idea was planted, not quite rage, not quite revenge, just a slow burning clarity. I wouldn't always be beneath them. One day, they would look up and see me standing far above. I grew up in a small town tucked between the mountains, where dreams were measured in inches, not miles. My parents owned a hardware store, worked 7 days a week, and believed success came from loyalty and keeping your head down. That mindset never sat right with me. I wanted more, not just wealth or recognition, but freedom. The power to walk away when I chose, not when someone else dismissed me. T. Westgrove Financial. I was invisible, yet invaluable. I built complex models behind the scenes while the men presented my work as their own in executive meetings. I kept quiet because I needed the experience and the access. Over 4 years, I watched, I listened, and I learned, while others played politics. I studied their moves like a chess master, waiting for the right opening. And then it came. One evening, while staying late to fix yet another mess Ethan had made, I discovered a folder in our shared drive, poorly encrypted, arrogantly labeled "winners only." It was a goldmine of insider communication, boardroom recordings, client manipulation strategies, even proof of insider trading. Ethan and his cronies were arrogant enough to document their corruption because they believed they were untouchable. I knew better. I copied everything onto a secure drive, encrypted it again, and made several backups. This wasn't something I could act on immediately, not without a plan, not without protection. So, I bided my time. Over the next year, I enrolled in night school for an MBA, funded quietly by the freelance consulting gigs I picked up after hours. I built relationships with mid-tier clients Ethan had ignored, offering them smart, honest advice under the table. My reputation grew in whispers. People in the industry started calling me the ghost analyst, a mysterious consultant who solved impossible problems without revealing her identity. Meanwhile, at Westgrove, Ethan was promoted again this time to VP. His smugness grew in proportion to his carelessness. He stopped double-checking numbers, stopped verifying what he signed, and that's when I made my move. Ethan thought he was flying high, corner office, personal parking space, and the ear of the firm's top brass. But what he didn't realize was that his empire was built on stolen work, falsified reports, and the trust of men just as greedy as he was. While he celebrated his rise, I planted seeds in every crack of his foundation. Every time he passed off my analysis as his own, I left a faint trail behind, just enough for someone digging deep to trace the real author. My name was never spoken in the open, but the right people began to notice patterns. I started connecting with other women in the firm, the ones they called support staff, the ones who stayed late and kept the place running but were never invited to the strategy meetings. We met for coffee, lunch breaks, weekend walks in the park. Quiet conversations turned into an underground network of overlooked talent. We called ourselves the Whisper Network. Each of us had a story like mine, passed over, patronized, silenced. Together, we shared what we knew: financial irregularities, manipulative tactics, and all the things the men thought no one noticed. The real power move began when I set up my own consulting firm in secret under the name C.M. Winslow A. Nod to my grandmother's surname, the one they never bothered to remember. I registered it offshore, hired a trusted lawyer as the face, and began bidding for mid-sized clients using my underground reputation. Thanks to the drive I'd secured, I had enough dirt to keep Ethan and his circle from tracing anything back. To me, the firm, though modest at first, gained momentum quickly. Word spread that Winslow had insights no one else could offer and a way of protecting clients from the very tricks firms like Westgrove pulled. Ethan's grip began to slip as he lost a few key accounts clients who said nothing but quietly shifted their business away. He blamed the junior staff, barking orders, demanding late nights, micromanaging every email. He never once suspected that the intern he once mocked was orchestrating his slow unraveling from behind the scenes. I kept showing up to Westgrove every day, still smiling, still quiet, but my mind was elsewhere. I was tracking everything: emails, leaked conversations, stock shifts. I kept tabs on Ethan's every move and used it to predict which clients he would target next, offering those very clients better deals just before he could reach them. He thought he was being undercut by a new market disruptor. He didn't realize I had the playbook to his every move. Then, the big moment came. A multinational firm, Ashwood Capital, put out a closed request for proposal. Only firms with pristine records and high client satisfaction were invited. Westgrove made the list. So did I. I worked day and night crafting the perfect proposal for Winslow Consulting. Unlike Ethan's slick, overconfident presentation, mine was lean, clear, data-driven. I submitted it through a proxy, ensuring my identity remained a mystery. A week later, I got the call. We've selected your firm. Your discretion and precision are exactly what we need. It was the biggest contract of my career. And the final blow to Ethan's, when the news broke that Westgrove had lost the Ashwood deal, Ethan lost it. He threw a tantrum in the office, accused his team of sabotage, and even tried to spin the loss as a strategic decision. But the partners weren't buying it. They began digging into his numbers, his record, even his emails. That's when the first domino fell. Someone from the board quietly reached out to me. They wanted help conducting an internal audit. They'd heard of Winslow and were willing to pay generously for insights into Westgrove's weaknesses. I agreed on one condition: the audit would be conducted anonymously. They never realized I was already sitting at a desk just down the hall. As the internal audit began, the atmosphere at Westgrove shifted from smug arrogance to tense suspicion. Ethan's cheerfully oppressive commands turned into frantic micromanagement. Every morning meeting carried the edge of paranoia. He started second-guessing everyone, accusing junior associates of leaking data, demanding loyalty oaths in hushed hallway conversations. Meanwhile, I sat in my corner cubicle, typing quietly, head down, just as I had for years. Only now, every keystroke was strategic. Every spreadsheet I touched, every report I handed over, subtly emphasized the cracks he'd long tried to plaster over. The board's auditing committee worked quickly. They began questioning discrepancies, finding inconsistencies between public client statements and internal memos. I fed the audit process just enough at a time, never all at once, never too fast. It had to look organic, like the firm's rot was simply rising to the surface on its own. I'd waited too long for this moment to rush it. And still, Ethan never saw me coming. His arrogance was his shield. It never occurred to him that the assistant he'd called replaceable was orchestrating every step of his downfall. One afternoon, as I was walking past the conference room, I caught a glimpse of Ethan hunched over a table with 3 board members, red-faced, sweating, shouting. A printed email chain lay spread out before them, one I had carefully curated and left in just the right unsecured folder. His voice was sharp, accusing one of the partners of framing him. They didn't buy it. His credibility was crumbling. Rumors started swirling through the office. Ethan was under investigation, his accounts were being frozen, and his contract might be voided by the end of the quarter. I stayed quiet, answering calls, taking notes, booking meetings as always. But, internally, I was already miles ahead. Winslow Consulting had secured 3 new contracts in the last 2 weeks alone, and the buzz around the mysterious, data-savvy firm had reached the ears of the industry's top players. Everyone wanted to know who was behind it. I wasn't ready to reveal that. Not yet. Then, out of nowhere, Ethan tried to shift the blame to me. He barged into my cubicle one morning, eyes wild, holding a printed document. "Did you send this to compliance?" he hissed. I looked at the paper, a brief report I'd drafted weeks earlier, outlining minor inconsistencies in his client pitches. It was a breadcrumb I'd deliberately planted in the company's shared drive, knowing someone would eventually find it. I just uploaded it to the general folder, I said calmly. Did I do something wrong? He stared at me, blinking like he couldn't tell if I was playing dumb or just that naive. You don't move unless someone tells you to. So who told you to write this? That was when I knew. He was scared. I shrugged. I thought it was my job to double-check the figures. Isn't accuracy important? He stomped away, but the damage was done. His desperation was showing. And in a company that worshiped control and composure, Ethan's unraveling became a spectacle. People whispered when he walked by. Meetings started without him. His name became radioactive, and then came the email from the board data and all-staff message. Polite, cold. After a thorough review of recent conduct and compliance issues, we regret to announce that Mr. Ethan Blake will be stepping down from his position, effective immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. No farewell speech. No celebration. Just a quietly cleared-out office. He was gone. I stayed late that night, sitting alone in the darkened office, watching the lights flicker across the empty floor. After all those years of being underestimated, dismissed, and overlooked, the king had fallen and no one even knew who'd toppled him. But my plan wasn't finished, because revenge was never just about Ethan. Ethan was only the first piece. His downfall had opened the door, but the rot within Westgrove ran deeper: old money, nepotism, and a culture that had thrived on silencing voices like mine for decades. I didn't want to just expose one man. I wanted to shift the foundation entirely. So, as the firm scrambled to fill the leadership void Ethan left behind, I accelerated my next move, using Winslow's growing influence. I reached out to 3 rival firms who had always lingered just behind Westgrove in the rankings. They'd lost major clients over the years because of Westgrove's ruthless tactics, often the same ones I had detailed in the files I'd saved. In exchange for partnerships and investment in my firm, I gave them exactly what they needed: proof, not just of Ethan's corruption, but of systemic deception that could ruin Westgrove's legacy. The reports, the data trails, the client manipulation, all compiled neatly in a secure presentation I titled "The Smile They Ignored." The fallout was swift. News broke across industry blogs and financial publications. Westgrove under scrutiny, the headlines screamed. Investigations followed. Clients pulled contracts. Investors hesitated. And inside the firm, panic took hold. They tried to paint Ethan as a rogue operator, but it was too late. The paper trail implicated board members, legal counsel, and even her people who had long turned a blind eye or signed off on questionable deals. I watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. A week later, I submitted my resignation. No explanation, no fanfare, just a clean, simple email. I remember packing my things slowly, methodically, as the office buzzed around me with confusion. A few people tried to stop by, some curious, others trying to subtly dig for answers. I smiled, thanked them for everything, and walked out with my head high. Not one of them realized I had already built something 10 times more powerful than anything Westgrove could offer. Outside, a black sedan waited for me. Not a cab, not a rideshare. My car, my driver, my firm. Winslow had grown from a whisper into a storm. Clients lined up now, drawn to our ethical model, data precision, and the quiet strength behind our anonymity. We were everything Westgrove pretended to be, just smarter, leaner, and led by someone who had studied corruption from the inside and vowed never to let it happen again. But I wasn't ready to hide any more. At our annual investor dinner, a high-end affair in a glass-walled rooftop ballroom, I stood before a crowd of executives, media representatives, and partners. My lawyer, the one who had played the face of the company for so long, stepped back and handed me the microphone. "My name," I said, letting the silence hold for just a beat, "is Clara Morgan. I am the founder and CEO of Winslow Consulting." There was a ripple of surprise, gasps, blinking confusion. A few mouths hung open. Some looked at each other as if trying to remember if they'd seen me before. I let them sit in that confusion. Let them process that the assistant, the intern, the girl who brought coffee to meetings they never invited her to, was now the woman running the most talked about consulting firm on the East Coast. I used to work for a company that believed quiet meant weak. That kindness was naivety. That power belonged to the loudest voice in the room. They were wrong. The applause started small, then grew. And in that moment, I didn't feel vengeful. I felt free. The following morning, a request came through my assistant's desk. A private meeting. The name attached to it, Ethan Blake. For a few seconds, I just stared at the email. His name was right there, Ethan Blake requesting a private meeting with me. No subject line, no message. Just a time, a place, and a name I hadn't spoken aloud in months. My first instinct was to ignore it. He didn't deserve a second more of my attention. But then again, this wasn't about him. It never really had been. This was about closure, about standing across from the man who once held power over me and letting him see what I'd become without ever lowering myself to his level. I arrived early to the hotel lounge. He'd chosen an upscale place, quiet but public. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. The slick confidence was gone. His eyes darted around the room nervously. He was thinner, older, somehow, like the weight of his own misdeeds had finally settled on his shoulders. "Clara," he said, trying to smile. "You look successful." I said nothing, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. He sat across from me, fumbling with his sleeves. For a man who once strutted through the office like he owned the world, he now seemed unsure how to sit still. "I didn't come here to argue," he said finally. "I just wanted to understand. It was you, wasn't it? The audit, the leaks, the fall." I didn't confirm or deny, just tilted my head slightly and waited. He sighed. "You know, I used to think I had the world figured out. People like me, guys who knew how to talk, how to win, we always came out on top. I never thought someone like you could turn everything upside down." "You mean someone who didn't go to your college?" I said coolly. "Someone you thought was beneath you?" He nodded slowly, shame creeping into his expression. "I was wrong about a lot of things, about you most of all." I leaned back in my chair. "You didn't see me, Ethan. You saw a role, an assistant, a note taker, and while you played the game out loud, I studied in silence. That was your first mistake." He looked away, fingers twitching on the edge of his coffee cup. "I lost everything," he murmured. "The money, the house, even my reputation. No one will hire me. No one will return my calls. I thought maybe you could help." That was when I realized he didn't come for closure. He came for a lifeline. I smiled, but not cruelly, just with the kind of clarity that comes from letting go. "You taught me an invaluable lesson, Ethan. You showed me how easily power can corrupt, how deeply systems can fail, and how strong someone becomes when they have no choice but to build from the ashes." He stared at me like he still couldn't fully grasp what I'd done, how the girl he dismissed as invisible had dismantled his empire with a smile and a spreadsheet. "I don't owe you anything," I said gently, "but I will give you this. Your fall wasn't personal. It was inevitable. And now, maybe you'll learn to listen." I stood and extended my hand, not in forgiveness, not in friendship, but as a final gesture. He shook it, eyes glossy, and I walked out without looking back. That night, I stood at the window of my firm's new headquarters, watching the city glow below me. The skyline pulsed with life, opportunity, ambition. Everything I had fought for was real now, etched in glass, cement, and legacy. I thought about all the women like me, still trapped in office cubicles, still overlooked. And I made myself a promise. My firm would never be like the others. We would lead differently, fairly, transparently, because the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was success, the kind they could never take away.